universe of startups, vision is just the beginning. Our startup leaders share the lessons that build the future. Join the conversation.
Hey, I'm Vicky, and this is the Just Be Better podcast with our Startup Leaders Talk segment, where we dive into the minds of founders and execs who are shaping the startup ecosystem. If you're just listening and prefer to see our faces, head over to our YouTube channel at Just Be Better. We love it when you tune in and join the conversation. It not only helps the algorithm, but also makes our guests feel seen and heard. And for today's episode, I'm joined by Helen Tomlinson, VP of People and Talent. Helen's journey from recruitment into broader people leadership role is packed with insights. We'll chat about that transition, the impact of toxic work environments, and how the role of people leader is evolving in today's startup landscape. No prep, no fluff, just real talk. Let's get into that. Helen, thank you so much for joining me today. Could you start by briefly introducing yourself to our audience, please?
Where to start as an introduction? Hi, I'm Helen. I'm going to go with a people and talent professional. I am based in the UK. I actually live in the countryside in very today sunny Cornwall. I'm just excited to have a conversation with you, Vicky, about the things that I've done, the things that I've seen, and the world of people and talent.
Let's start from the very beginning of your career. You started in recruitment and talent side. What pulled you into recruitment in the first place?
It was an accident. I'll be honest. I'm not sure that any little girl wakes up and goes, I want a career in HR. Please tell me if you found someone that did.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Shocker. I guess for me, I was working in retail management at the time. That's where I actually started my career, and got chatting to a really lovely recruitment consultant who recruited for retail management roles. And the more that we chatted, I was sort of asking her to help me find a new role at the time. And after a while, I kind of went, tell me a bit more about what you do. It sounds really interesting. You get to meet some really great people, new people all day, every day, and you get to talk about retail and not actually have to work in it. And she kind of went, oh, would you be interested? We're recruiting. And honestly, it just kind of went from there, really. So I joined a retail recruitment agency, quite a small boutique one. It was just UK based, and I absolutely loved it. I can't even tell you how much, mainly because, same reasons, got to meet lots and lots of different people in the city that I lived in, which was Bristol, and I grew up there. So kind of knew the landscape, knew lots of people, got to talk about retail without having to work in it and not working until like midnight on Christmas Eve. And I got that sense of achievement, I guess, I certainly hadn't found in retail management of making placements and getting those wins, along with the lows that come with recruitment, and especially agency recruitment as well. And made some amazing new friends and kind of started down this path that I'd never imagined. And I had no idea where it would go either. So I'd never, like I said, considered a career in recruitment or people or talent or any of that kind of world. And so kind of stepped in, not really knowing anything, and with eyes wide open and looking to learn a lot and make lots of new connections along the way. So that's how it started.
And I honestly don't think I ever met anyone who answered to this question and said, I always dreamed about being in sales or recruitment. So if anyone who's listening to this actually loved all their life, all they dreamed about is to be in recruitment, please let me know. I would love to speak with you, because that's definitely a topic I think most of people in recruitment would love to hear.
It's quite interesting about how you'd form that view that was your career path. At school you hear about the more traditional careers like nurse, doctor, firefighter, work in a bank. I don't know, maybe that's a little bit old fashioned, but there's so many roles. And now it's kind of gone to the other extreme of STEM roles that are being talked about in schools. And then there's this kind of whole world in the middle that doesn't really get talked about. So I talk to my children a lot about what I do, just to try and ensure that they understand that there's just such a huge variety of roles. And obviously they're young, they don't particularly want a career in HR either. But at least they understand, or trying to explain what I do is actually quite tough for young children to understand. But I think there's just this whole world of careers and specialisms, like in this kind of middle group, that just don't really get talked about enough.
100%. I personally find out about recruitment as a job in general and very late in my life in comparison. I think I was in my third year of university already. And I actually met someone who worked in oil and gas recruitment, and they were like, oh, I'm in recruitment. I was like, what on earth is this? Because for some reason, recruitment to me always was associated with hiring almost students into universities or helping students after university to get into jobs, but not something where you actually do after university and getting people jobs in different fields. But anyway, that's not about me. When you think about your current role and your leadership position, what part of your recruitment experience still shapes how you lead today, do you think?
Oh, that's a great question. How does it shape? I am probably quite naturally inquisitive. Inquisitive isn't the right word. I'm really nosy, professionally nosy is what I will say. And I think that stemmed from recruitment. It was obviously taught to me because I didn't have those skills to ask open questions. Actually, that was the first thing, was making sure that you can get the right information by asking open questions. So I ask a lot of questions of people, and it can be as mundane and as random as, I join a call in the morning. What did you have for breakfast? On a Monday, what did you do at the weekend? Just really nosy. And the reason why I think that suits me well in a people leadership role, and especially my role now, is getting to know the people that I support and that I lead and that I work with. And I like to get to know people on a human level. That's much harder in a bigger business. So I'm careful about how I manage that in the size business that I'm in at the moment. It's a number, or a headcount number, that's a little bit harder to do. But then also we have the layer of remote working. So we are a fully remote company. We do use co-working spaces, but not to the extent where lots of people get together a lot. So for me, that connection is really important, and it has to be intentional, because it can't be by accident, because I don't bump into somebody in the kitchen. I bump into my husband if he's lucky. We just don't have that. So it has to be over-engineered. So you have to force it. I don't feel like it's forced to me, because it comes quite naturally to me. But I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've taken throughout my career, is being professionally nosy.
I love the saying. I'm going to steal this one. Not gonna lie. So what sparked the shift from pure recruitment into a broader people and talent leadership role for yourself then?
Yeah, I'm happy to own this. It's slightly earlier in my career, and to an extent now, if I'm really honest, I was really ambitious. Like, I just desperately wanted to progress. It was always the next level, the next title, the next seat at the table, whatever that group was that I wanted to be a part of. And so I guess where I sort of found my recruitment journey after a while, especially moving from agency to in-house, was that there was just a bit of a ceiling. I felt, and especially being based outside of a massive city as well. So Bristol is one of the smaller cities in the UK. I just felt that there was just a bit of a ceiling in terms of what I could do that I hadn't already done. I tried out a number of sectors in my recruitment career, found out what I liked and what I didn't like, how I like to work, how I didn't like to work. That's really important to me. But just felt that I was just really eager to learn more, do more, be more, achieve more. And I have worked with some really great people. And I could just see some of the things that they got involved in, was like, that's really cool and HR don't always go together. But in my mind, I kind of went, that's really interesting. They do some great stuff. And I feel like I'm in this kind of little box. And I just feel the need to be like unleashed a little bit. And I was desperate to learn more, like I said, desperate to just be a bigger version of what I was doing, or what I had been doing, or what I'd specialised in. And so I just, wanted to aim high. And I didn't really have a particular role in mind. I didn't go, hey, in 5 years' time, I want to be a VP of people and talent. Like, it just wasn't really the kind of trajectory that I'd thought of. If you'd asked me where I wanted to be in 5 years, I'm not really sure I could have answered it. And that was fine at the time. I just kind of went, I want to learn this. I want to get involved in that. I want to get involved in that project. I want some recognition for some great work that I do over here that isn't part of my normal day-to-day job. And so I just learned loads, got involved in things, got not pushy, but in a good way, as in like just putting my hand up for stuff. Let me help. Can I get involved in this? I don't really know anything about this, but I'm really willing to help. And just got involved more that way. And as I went on, just added on different bits of knowledge to the point where then actually someone was willing to take a chance on me moving into a standalone people leadership role.
So I have two different questions out of what you just said, and I want to be really nosy. When you said you learn the things what you hate or what you don't like and what you like in recruitment, what was the things that you didn't like?
Yeah, and it's really personal to me. It's more about the environment that I work in, and I've decided what I don't like and how I don't like to work. I spent some time in the NHS, what a learning curve. Like just a completely different world. I'd come from agency through a little bit of corporate and RPO and then into the NHS. I wanted to find out what it was like, quite frankly. I don't think it's the kind of environment that I thrive. Bit slow, lots of sort of quite bureaucratic, lots of red tape. And I kind of felt like I wasn't really achieving as much as I'd kind of thought I might be able to achieve. So that was the kind of environment that wasn't necessarily suited to me. I didn't find more people like me in the NHS, and that's really important to me, that I don't need to find a carbon copy of myself, but like I need to find like almost like my people. And probably the environment that I, as of today, now think doesn't suit me is a corporate environment. And when I say that, imagine like obviously black shift dress and heels, like proper polished every day, enough makeup that I can just get by. I just don't think it's very me. I spent some time in FTSE 100 financial services. What an amazing learning ground. I took a load of best practice learning from that environment. And I think it really shaped some of the way that I interact with people today, some of the things that I do and the sort of the people values that I have, and some of the just the core knowledge, I guess, of how to do things properly. So an amazing time for my own learning and my own development. I just don't think it's me. Like, I think now I work fully remotely. I'm in my slippers, for God's sake. Like, you will not find me again 5 days a week in a corporate office. It's not really me. I've always felt like a tiny bit of me just felt like I didn't quite belong there. And so I would say that the biggest realization coming out of that corporate environment was that I don't think I'd quite been myself. I'd been holding back because I didn't feel like I could be who I really was and who I really am. So yeah, I think that's why it wouldn't be true to me to go back into that kind of environment. But it was an amazing time.
I think this is one of the biggest learners one can learn, is actually realizing what personally suits them and what doesn't. And if you can navigate your work and life around the things that where you know that you can bring the best out of you, it's such a massive deal. And there's unfortunately still a lot of people who think they enjoy it, but there's something is just missing and they're kind of scared to leave, which is a shame. And that's why they should speak with recruiters who can help them uncover this, and career coaches. And I'm not pitching myself, just saying. And another thing that you touched on is that HR and people in general and cool doesn't go together. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about people or talent roles in general?
Oh, this is such a good opportunity for me to do a shout out to an event that I went to on Friday, and it was the HR Big Meet. And the thing that stuck with me most is there was a lot of talk as HR is not your mum. I am not your mum. I've got my own children to look after. And so I think the biggest misconception is that HR is there to be a mum, are there to create and enforce rules, are there to be the fun police, are there to do simple admin tasks. And that's not my idea of HR. And it's not my idea of people and talent. It's not what I want to do. It's not why I do what I do. It's not what I enjoy doing. I think a really big misconception is that HR people can't be fun. Maybe people wouldn't describe me as fun, but I'd like to think that they would. I don't want to be, and I don't think I am like normal HR and people's kind of view of what traditional HR is. It's not the job that I'm in now. It's not the company that I work for now. It's not where I want to be. It's not what I want to do. It's not what I spend my days doing either. So I think a really big misconception is people have this sort of quite traditional, old-fashioned, boring view of what HR is.
Sending surveys, doing offsites, and telling people to stop doing what they're doing.
So I do all of that, but it doesn't mean it has to be like boring and not engaging and not with with no sprinkle of personality. I try and sprinkle my personality. Like I hope that my businesses that I've worked with, certainly in startup world, would tell you that what they see is what they get. That if they see me on a call, like this is me, you're not going to get anything different. If they see me in person, get the same thing. And so that's really important to me, is that I'm one of my business. I'm an employee too. So I get an employee experience from myself and from my team and from everybody else. So I would never want anyone in a business to think that there's this like barrier up between HR and the rest of the business. There's not.
And I think what I would like to add to everyone who thinks that HR or recruitment is not fun people, they should try and attend one of the festivals that
They're
recruitment companies
insane. Yeah,
do.
like the one that I went to on Friday. Oh my God, it was 250, slightly mad, and I know that they won't mind me saying this, women. And it was incredible. Such inspiring people with such inspiring stories and journeys, and just really making you think. Oh God, there was not a boring person in that room.
I went to one of, I think it's called Recruitment Fest or Rec Fest, something like that in summer. And it's like 2,000 people with you have...
It's an actual festival for recruiters.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can't get much cooler than that.
Yeah, it's technically supposed to be a networking event and learning event, but there's roller coasters and cotton candy and everything else. So not sure how much of networking, but probably the best networking is in that environment. But anyway, moving on. So when you moved from talent into people role, what do you think has been the biggest challenge when trying to transition from one side of HR into another, or taking both under your wing?
I think it's being given the opportunity. So I was finding that really difficult in some of the businesses that I was in. When I'd started to think, actually, I want to do more than just talent acquisition, I was finding it really hard for people to give me a chance. I didn't have all of the bits of experience. So if there was a people operations or a different type of people role that was opening or available, say to internal applications, there were external people that were stronger than me. So I think it was being given that opportunity to demonstrate that I could succeed was actually the biggest challenge that I felt. And like I said a moment ago, I was really lucky that someone gave me a chance. And the reason for that is because the first head of people role that I stepped into predominantly was spending the first 6 months scaling the business in terms of people. So they particularly wanted somebody who had come from a recruitment background who kind of knew enough of everything else to get by, I guess, whilst kind of just learning quite quickly whilst they were scaling the business. So that for me was the ideal role to step into, really. I was the first people hire in the business in the startup. And yeah, my first activity was to double the business in kind of 6 to 8 months. And then it was, right, now let's pick up everything else. And so, yeah, for me, that was the turning point. And I'll be forever grateful for Laka for giving me that opportunity and quite frankly, taking a chance on me.
By now you scaled a couple of people functions from scratch. And I'm coming back to misconceptions again. What do you think are the biggest misconceptions founders have or leaders of the business have when they start hiring people function and they're starting to build that function?
Again, I think it's that maybe a misconception about what a HR team should be there to do, and especially in a scale up as well, where you typically in the early stage don't have someone for everything. You don't have people who are experts in everything that you need them to be, and so people wear multiple hats. I think probably my view on where founders have a bit of a misconception, and it can develop into then how they think about hiring for people teams, is that people teams, certainly a people leader, should have a seat at the table. And I know that there's a lot of people who hate that phrase. Bring your own chair to the table, you could say, but just understanding that a HR team can just be such a powerful weapon. Predominantly, the biggest part of my role is building a successful business from the inside. I don't work with customers. I don't sell to people directly. I don't generate direct revenue from the business for the business. I don't ultimately kind of make it succeed from a financial point of view. But if the business succeeds, it's because of all the people and all the things that we've built internally to get it there. So I think there's maybe a bit of a misunderstanding in the same way of what a HR team is there to do, is to hire people, it's to fire people, it's to create some policies, it's to tell people off when they're doing wrong, rather than it's to hire amazing talent, develop them, nurture them, retain them, make sure that they're your champions. It's to make sure that we create a business that people want to join and stay and grow in. It's to make sure that everyone has a great time while they're doing it, and that they have a great experience, and they leave the business better than when they came in, more experienced, having more experiences. having developed their skills, etc. And ultimately all working together to make sure that the business gets to wherever it wants to get to in the future. And so, yeah, I think there is still this probably misconception a little bit of founding teams hiring their first people leader of, oh, I just need them to do this, this, and this, rather than how can this person help me create a super successful business?
I actually have, you can't see on camera, but I have goosebumps after your answer. That's like music to my ears to hear for what it is and what actually people leaders do in the role when they come in, rather than just hire, fire, and tell people off. It's such a fresh music to my ears.
And it's something that I've not always had that. If you'd have asked me that question a couple of years ago, I'd have struggled to answer it. But I think being now in the startup world, and I have been for a few years now, just understanding what it can look like and what it should look like. And a people leader, I'm not necessarily saying that they should be the right hand of the CEO, for example, but just leveraging that people leadership power. It should be a partnership role, not a obviously there's a subordinate relationship there, like manager employee relationship, but utilize your people leaders. They're there.
And talking about a seat at the table, as you nicely put it, in your opinion, who the people leaders should report to? Is it to the CEO? Should they be part of the leadership team? Should they report to CFO? What's your opinion on that?
Oh, it's a really good one, and it's of such debate. And I've seen, I've applied for roles and been interviewed for roles that have had different reporting lines: CEO, CFO, COO. It's an interesting one. So I think personally, it depends on the size and the structure of the makeup of the business as well, how international they are, if they're matrix, etc. Not that I think I would find myself in one of those businesses. I think to really have the impact that a people leadership role needs to have, it should report into a CEO. I think over time, depending again on the structure of the business, there can be a lot of synergy with certainly a COO. More so on the people operations side, and building structures, frameworks, scalable everything. A COO can be a really powerful advocate, stakeholder, ally. But I think really, if I saw a business and the people leader reported in, say, the CFO, you can tell what's important, and you can sort of see that I would want to see a CEO fight to have the people leader report into them. Like, that's what would make it for me, is that if a CEO was challenged on where the people leader should report, I'd want them to go, no, they're reporting to the CEO. Like, I would love to see that more.
On the more negative is the wrong word, but not as optimistic topic, another very trending debate at the moment, especially on LinkedIn and everywhere, is toxic work cultures. How do you personally define toxicity in workplace, and what do you think are the early signs of that toxic behavior in the team?
Oh, and I mean, there can be all manner of things that contribute to a toxic workplace. It can be top-down led. So if you've got a toxic sort of founding team or CEO, and I've seen some. I've not necessarily worked directly with some, but I've seen some, and it just sets the tone day to day, month to month, year to year, and you can't move away from that, because if things have happened, people remember. People have got long memories, and so you just need to be really careful, I guess, that that's not what people think your business is. But a day-to-day toxic culture can be all manner of things, because toxicity means different things to different people. So it can be as simple as aggressive staff or rude staff not being called out for it. And not being spoken to, and that being acceptable. It can be a culture of low pay, rubbish benefits. That can be quite a toxic environment. It can be work that's not rewarded, recognised. It can be, a culture of sort of overworking as well, and Slack messages all weekend long. That can be really toxic. So I think there's so many things. It's either people or actions, right? So it's either the people that are toxic, and you've just hired some not great people, or people who don't really work for your business and your employees. And that can be in any role. You can find a toxic person anywhere in a business. It doesn't have to be in leadership, doesn't have to be in HR. And then there's toxic actions. So there's toxic things that a business does that to the business feels like it's okay, but to the people there, it's not creating a great working environment. And it can be done by accident because the business maybe thinks it's done the right thing, but it's not. And it can definitely come from inaction. So when things are going wrong, people not taking a stand, letting things slide that should be being addressed, and just not stamping it out. Who wants to work in a toxic business? I'm sorry, but life is too short. I would not work for a business that I dreaded getting up in the morning, or I had Slack messages all weekend. I would just not stay in that business, and I don't see why people should put up with it.
And my next question, actually quite related to your answer at the moment, is what do you think is one or two things that people leader can do to shift the environment from toxic to actually improving in better direction, either in team or the company culture overall?
So I think first and foremost, it might depend on your business, but for me, it would look like being a role model. So if I saw something that I thought wasn't right, and it's something that didn't align with my personal values, I'd call it out, whether that's in directly just the CEO, whether it's in our executive team, whether it's in my team, whether it's to an individual, it doesn't really matter. But I think role modeling the behaviors that you want to see in your business is part of a people leadership role. People see me, I'm visible. If I'm acting in a certain way, then it makes it look like it's okay. And so I think just having a reality check of, hang on a minute, does this feel right? Does this look right? Are our employees telling us that something's wrong here? The biggest thing for me is understanding what bad looks like, and having the awareness and the desire and the motivation to do something about it, and not let it continue. You won't be able to hire people. You won't retain people. You'll have overall a bad EVP, a bad brand name externally. That then impacts on customers, partnerships, revenue, and ultimately the end of your business. Who wants that?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people don't realize how much impact negative culture has on overall business success. And there's multiple studies done.
It's longer term. You don't really see it necessarily on a day-to-day basis, but if it starts impacting on, I don't know, a customer goes, oh, I've not heard great things, and they tell another potential customer, or an investor, or whoever it is, word gets around, social media, and there's just so much stuff in the world now where you can find out a lot of information about a company, not least from the staff itself on things like Glassdoor or other platforms similar to that. Why wouldn't you do something about it? If it's gonna, if all you care about is cash and profit and dividends and shares and stuff like that, then have at it. But not. Why? Again, life's too short. Why not create an environment where people want to be?
And people role in general, and we touched on that a little bit already, that HR still is very stereotypically doing the admin work, doing the boring bits, but it has been evolving over the last decade, probably quite fast, and especially in the last 6 to 12 months. From your perspective, what changed the most, do you think, about people leader role?
Oh, it's a good question. I think even just when you talk about, even in just the question that you've just asked me, you've used the phrase HR and people leader, just the title of a people team. And I don't tend to find it probably slightly more in the startup world than you do in the corporate world. I think just the shift from calling teams HR to people and talent, I think it sets the tone, and the expectation is that it's moving away from that traditional view of HR. Am I human resources? No. Do I work with humans? Yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely love not having HR in my title. I don't have HR anywhere in my job description. I love that. And I love that change, and I want to see more of it. I want it to, and I love that it's changed from personnel back in the day as well. So personnel to HR, human resources, just a disgusting phrase, right? Into people and talent. I love the shift now to seeing lots of, to answer your question a bit more directly, things like people experience, you see and hear, and culture, people and culture. that just wasn't a thing 10 years ago, right? You just didn't hear the word experience or culture just anywhere, really, to my mind. And also people experience and people as a product. Really interested actually in the concept of treating not necessarily people as a product, although they are my product, they're my stakeholders, they're my customers, they are ultimately my product. But applying that mindset of not just creating things and like chucking them out into a business and just assuming that they're great, and that they don't need adapting, evolving. Nothing requires feedback. Nothing requires understanding whether what you've created is the right thing for the business. So I love that. I know it's continuing to build momentum. I know that there's a really big community of people experience experts in the market now, and that's probably what I look at and digest most of anything now is people as a product and people experience.
A couple of months ago, I attended a conference through, I don't know if you heard of Open.org. It's a human community, and there was a woman from a startup in Germany, and she talked about how she runs her people and talent team as product teams do. So they do have sprints, they do have retrospectives, and how differently people look into everything they do and how more seriously they take them. So I actually think that is a very fascinating way of actually leading people team. And I think that could be the future. Talking about the future, this was my answer. And now a question for you. What does the future of people leadership and people function in general look to you? What do you think is going to be the changes that you expect, or just overall, what narrative you think going to be?
Oh, what a question. And there's just so many different answers. I think it's really hard to say, actually. And the reason why I think it's really hard to say is you just never know what's around the corner. No one expected COVID, right? And certainly from a people point of view and a business point of view and a people leadership, a lot of things have changed. There's lots more hybrid working, remote working, just different ways of doing business and working with people, which for me is probably one of the only good things to come out of COVID. Is just like a change in the way in the world of work. I think there will be a shift in terms of work-related expectations for the younger generations. We're obviously seeing it already, how the younger generations expect to work and what they expect from employers. Very different from certainly where I grew up through the workplace, and people older than me as well. And I think that's going to have to be a big shift, and employers will need to adapt. There will need to be even more flexibility than there is now. We hear that the younger generation won't get out of bed for less than, I don't know what the number is, 20 grand, 30 grand. I don't even know what the number is. And employers are going to have to respond to that. We're an aging population. There's a lot of people in the UK and still growing. We're just going to have to figure out how to coexist with multiple generations in a business that all have completely different needs. So I think that's going to be quite a shift, is how do you cater for everyone, because one size doesn't fit all. And that's going to be quite difficult for HR teams, especially in the current economic climate as well, where people teams don't have huge budgets. And I would love to have a huge budget. But the reality is, I think trying to keep everybody happy and motivated and rewarded and having a great experience whilst not all fitting into the same box and having different needs on very limited budget is actually going to be quite difficult. So I think people and talent teams are going to have to find new ways of hiring, retaining, engaging, motivating, leading, inspiring, and making sure that people are effective and efficient, because there's kind of no room for teams are lean. There's no space for kind of wasted effort and wasted people. And then I don't want to talk about it today because it slightly scares me, but AI. I am not on the AI train just yet, and I know I really should be, but I've got my reasons as to why I don't. I prefer a personal touch. I don't want something writing someone or something writing something for me. I want it to come from me. And yes, that makes me less effective and efficient, and I'm very aware of that. But I I have no idea how AI is going to impact on people and talent teams. My view of a kind of a great world where people and talent and AI can exist is that AI helps with things like operational tasks, efficiencies, but actually doesn't take the human element out of human resources. And I would be horrified if AI took over my job.
I think that's one of the biggest scares, and one of the problems that I personally try to tackle with my own business that I'm building is, at the moment we're getting into an era where AI is doing most of the work for candidates up to like stage 2 interview from talent perspective. And then on the company side, we have deepfakes and avatars interviewing people as well. So up to stage 3, you don't have any human interaction. And then people get surprised how I cannot hire people. And I was like, because you have an AI interviewing AI, how do you expect to find people to work for you? And
you've got no person in there.
Yeah.
How can you understand if someone's right for your business? And that should start from the first meeting, the first call. My view is that we shouldn't lose that human connection. And so I'm probably quite wary of AI. And it's come on leaps and bounds. Like every month there's something new, and like, where are we going to be in like 5 or 10 years time? And I don't know, the whole topic slightly scares me.
Yeah, I think that's the topic that we probably could spend about 2 hours on. So I'm going to move on to speedy startups.
I actually don't even want to talk about it. It scares me so much.
Perfect. So as I said, Helen, speedy startups is a little bit quicker of a part of this interview. I have, I think, 20 or 21 questions, something on those lines. It's the questions where I'll try not to put anything from myself. In that, knowing how much I love to talk, that's the hardest part of this for me to keep quiet. I'm going to ask you a question. You can answer it as short or as long as you want. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's go with this. The first question is, what's the worst interview question you ever heard?
Oh God. It's actually, do you know what? I'm going to answer this, not the answer that you want, but I got asked a question by a candidate in an interview, and it wasn't an interview question per se, but halfway through the interview, a candidate went, "Oh my God, do you mind if I use my vape?" in the middle of an interview. So actually, I know that's not quite answering your question as to the worst question, but it's the worst question I think I've heard in an interview, and it took me so off guard, and he was obviously so nervous that I just went, yeah. It obviously didn't impact the conversation that we were having. He was at home, I was at home. Ultimately, it didn't stop me assessing him fairly. There was no bias, but it's probably the first time, and this is only a couple of years ago, probably the first time that in an interview I've been completely caught off guard. And it doesn't happen very often, but I was almost speechless.
I can imagine. Then remote, hybrid, or office?
I'm going to go remote, but with some optional in-person touch points.
If not your current role, Helen, what would you be doing instead?
You would not find me doing anything else. I was born to do this.
Love the answer. What do you think is the most overrated buzzword in business right now?
AI.
If you could remove or change one thing about the people role or people leader role, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. I was about to say admin, but actually, like just some Friday afternoons, you just want to get your head down, and a little bit of admin is a good thing. What would I change about it? Having to support people when they're at their lowest, or when actually something absolutely terrible has happened. I'm not a trained counsellor. I'm human. I have my own emotional responses to things, and trying to support somebody or a group of people when there is I've literally had to deliver the worst news to a business is absolutely the worst part of my job, because it is part of the job and you have to do it, but dealing with people and all the things that people go through just can be really hard, and no one's ready for it. No one can prepare you for it. You never know what conversation you're going to have, or when you pick up the phone, things can just catch you completely off guard. And so I think trying your best to support people when they're at their most vulnerable, I wouldn't change it, but it's really hard. And I think it should be recognised a bit more that people in people and talent teams have those conversations day in, day out, and they don't get any training. And you can't ever be fully prepared for the worst kind of conversation. And I don't think that gets recognized enough. Like, I can feel a bit of a lump in my throat now because it's hard. It's really hard.
I feel you, and I'm really sorry that you or anyone else have to go through that. I know the feeling, and I know I shouldn't be talking, but it's one of the things that is definitely, even the more admin-y type of, I say admin-y with the quote marks, but like firing someone when you know their personalities, you know their personal circumstances, it can be very daunting on you personally. And that's why I always advocate that therapists should be paid by a company, especially for people team.
Yeah, and I think it never gets any easier, and you're dealing with people's lives here. And although you might come across as well prepared and professional, like if I ever have to have any conversation like that, I just would want anybody to know that, like, oh my God, the butterflies, and I feel terrible when I'm doing it. I feel really nervous that I'm either going to get something wrong or I'm going to not come across with the empathy that I actually do feel because I have to follow a script or I have to do something a certain way. And yeah, it's never obviously the most fun part of a role when you're making, certainly firing decisions or redundancy decisions. Ultimately, for me, I more think, right, it's for the business is my main stakeholder. And if it's for the good of the business, there's a right way to do it, even though you've got to do it sometimes.
I have my palms started sweating just by listening. So we're moving on. Most underrated skill for people leaders.
Like being a therapist, because no one teaches you that. You don't get any training like we've just talked about. It's just something that you just do. You have to do. You muddle through, you get by, you support people in whatever way that you can, you utilize external support tools, etc. But I think it's underrated that, you naturally step into this like therapist type role, even though that's not the career that you went into.
Should salary always be included in job ads?
Yes.
One thing you wish you could automate in your job?
Automate. I would love something, and I know you're going to tell me that AI can do this. I would love something to just create some lovely slide decks for me that just look pretty. I don't want it to write any content for me. I want to write the content, but like I'm not a heavily designy person, like clip art all the way. Not quite, but I would spend too much time making something look appealing, and it takes me too much time because it's not my natural skill set. And I know something, you're going to tell me that something can automate this for me, but again, it's that feeling I can't quite let AI do things to me that hasn't come from me, and so I'm not quite there yet, but I should be automating that kind of stuff.
I think AI can automate some of it, but not all of it, because I have exactly the same problem. I know what to say, but when I need to put that on slides, it's like, I'm not a designer. I cannot figure out the colors. So AI can help you with that a little bit, but you still need a professional eye to actually tell you, yeah, these colors doesn't go together. So I know the feeling. Next question. What's one perk or benefit more startups should offer?
I would love to see more startups investing in employer contributions to pensions. I do not want to tell you how old I am, but I'm at the age where I'm starting to think, oh crap, I should have definitely invested more in my pension and should have amassed more savings in my earlier days. I know in my age group, I'm not the only one. I'm probably slightly more fortunate than the younger generations are today, and less fortunate than the older generations. And it's definitely starting to bother me that, what does retirement actually look like? And luckily it's a few years off just yet. But I think employers have more of a responsibility for supporting employees with financial health, not just with savings and retirement plans, but on a day-to-day basis. Like, life is hard. Everything's more expensive. Salaries aren't increasing at quite the same rate, certainly across the board. But I think the one thing for me that employers could and should be doing more of is supporting employees into their retirement ages.
And what's one people trend everyone seems to copy, but no one really understands or do it right, do you think? Do you think culture fit is just another way to reinforce biases?
No, not traditional biases anyway, and certainly not any form of discrimination. I think culture fit can be really important because I guess if I was walking into a business where they hadn't assessed my culture fit and I walked in and people, maybe a bad way to phrase it, but people weren't like me, Would I thrive? No. So I guess a buzzword in our business is thriving. Will people thrive in our environment? And so that's more what we're looking for, rather than people fitting in. We'd more think about it as thriving. Is this somewhere that people can come and do some great work and have some great achievements and be rewarded in a way that they want to be rewarded along the way? So yeah, I do think culture fit is important. I don't think it should be the be all and end all, as in you shouldn't necessarily be making decisions, but I think it is right to say you won't thrive here. Maybe you'd thrive better somewhere else.
On that note, do you have your go-to question to assess culture fit in the interview?
Oh, I now haven't interviewed for quite a while, so it's but I probably would have had a great question back in the day that I now can't recall. I think for me, it's going back to being professionally nosy. Like I try and get people to open up. A question that I love asking anybody, actually, in an interview or not, is how did you get into this career? Did you choose it? Did you fall into it? What's your journey been like? Like why did you go and study what you studied at engineering, your early career? Like how did you end up here? And for me, I'm interested in what they say, obviously, very nosy, but also just hearing them talk. It doesn't really matter for me the question that I've asked. It's how they talk, it's how they come across, it's the body language, it's how open they are, it's how much I believe what they've just told me, quite frankly, or whether they think they're telling me what they think I want to hear. So I think it's less about the question and more about not even the answer, it's the way that they answer a question is really important for me.
Unlimited holidays, empowering or a total scam?
I am a fan of unlimited holidays. I have not yet worked in a business that's had them. I'm really keen to launch it at some point in a business, whether it's my current business or not. I want to be a people leader that makes it work, because obviously it works for some businesses. Obviously it doesn't work for other businesses. I would welcome it as a challenge to see if I could make it work.
What's your take on quiet quitting? Valid boundary setting or just disengagement?
I think it can be both. You mentioned things like toxic workplaces. Boundary setting fits in really well with that. I think there's a whole manner of things that can impact on quiet quitting, and it can be anything. It can be a non-fulfilling job. It can be an overly fulfilling job. It can be a lack of reward and recognition. It can be that the sun's out and it's really sunny and someone wants to sit outside. So I think there can be prolonged quiet quitting over a period of time, or it could just be for an afternoon. I don't think, but I think a big thing of it is engagement. Although, let's not pretend, it's really hard to keep people engaged as a group and as individuals, day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out.
My next question is actually, I've been asked this question a couple of weeks ago, and I really struggled with the answer. So I would love to hear how you answer it. Would you ever hire someone who was fired from their last job for performance reasons?
It would depend what I was hiring them to do. If, let's use a salesperson, probably a helpful, something that everyone can understand. If someone had consistently not hit their targets for 2 years, no, I'm not sure I'd hire them.
What's a people initiative you've seen work surprisingly well?
Something that worked really well in my last business was an early Friday finish. And it wasn't by a lot. We're talking like 3 p.m. on a Friday, so we're not talking like the entire day. Why it worked really well? It worked well because we trialed it first. So we trialed it twice. We did it in the summer for a month or two, and then we did it in the winter, and then we got it in permanently. So I think almost it wasn't intentionally done as like the people as a product type structure, but it was trialed. We received feedback that it was good. It didn't impact on productivity, and it was, to me, it seemed like something that was quite a simple benefit that people just hugely valued. The business still has it today. It's really well thought of. And actually it made me realize that some things can be simple and have quite a big impact. I actually pitched for a 9-day fortnight, so every other Friday off completely. So I'm not going to pretend that 3 p.m. Fridays was my target goal. It wasn't. But it was the thing that suited the business most at that time. And so is it a people initiative? Yeah, maybe. It just meant that people just felt differently about their week. They had a target. We got them to I was always, what are you doing at 3 p.m. on a Friday? We got people to talk about it, not to a whole EVP type activity, but as an initiative, it absolutely did what it was supposed to do.
One book, podcast, or resource you recommend to every people leader?
I have recently, I'm not a great podcast person. I find that I don't have the time for it. I've started listening to, I think it's called PX Espresso. With Luke Mahoney. So he's UK based and does podcasts and talks to other people leaders in the space. It's mainly in startups, which I love listening to because I've got similar challenges. I've had loads of successes that I can take lots of things from. There's a heavy focus on talking about coffee. I'm not a coffee connoisseur, so I can't say that I know all the things that they're talking about. But it's also that they talk about real life in there as well. And there's just kind of a mixture of very people and human-centric people leaders. And I love listening to it.
And a question from my last guest. As I mentioned, every single guest posed a question to my future guest. So you got a question from my previous guest. What advice would you give to your younger self coming out of school or uni, not knowing what you will be doing in 10 or 20 years?
Just have your eyes open. I mentioned that certainly HR roles and people roles are this kind of area that kids don't get told about. And so I think coming out of university, not if you want to go down a traditional path like lawyer, doctor, or whatever, that you've just used your lovely degree in, you don't have to fit into a mold. Go and try new things. Go and be job hoppy. It doesn't matter. Don't be job hoppy forever because you will maybe struggle in some areas, but go and try some different things. I didn't intentionally do it, but find things that you don't like to then find things that you do like. Find your people. Find where you feel most comfortable. Find something that you don't get out of bed in the morning and think, I don't want to do today. Work is such a small part of everyone's lives, and especially a job and a job role. It's a tiny part of someone's life. If people are living to 80, 90, 100, and you spent 2 years in this job role, it's a tiny proportion. So think about it that way. Careers now are less for life than they used to be. Take the risk, take the chance, go and work for a startup that folds 6 months later. Have the experiences, talk to people, meet new people, make new connections, do what you love.
Love this. And could you pose a question to my next guest, please?
If it was to another people and talent leader?
No, it can be absolutely anyone, any career. They are going to be leader within startup ecosystem.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What made you choose the path that you started on?
Perfect. Love it. And we talked for so long. I honestly could speak. I feel like I could talk with you for another 2 hours, and I have so many more questions, and it was so fantastic to have you here, Helen. Thank you for being here. And I really hope to get you back again.
Yeah. Amazing. Sounds good. Yeah. I can talk to you all day. And I've tried to keep the answers as succinct as possible. I will waffle if someone lets me. So yeah, I'm just hoping that the answers and the questions that we've talked through today, just tell a little bit about me and my journey and my story, what I think about the people and talent space, and if anything in there just resonates with it, just one person, that's what I'm doing it for.
Before I let you go, Helen, if someone wants to contact you or wants to speak with you, how could they reach out to you?
Probably LinkedIn is the best place. I am terrible now that I've moved out of recruitment. I don't check it every day. But typically if someone kind of genuinely wants to connect with me and not to just sell me something, I will respond to people on LinkedIn.
And I attested that. That's how I approach Helen myself. And here we are. We have a podcast. It works. I'll add all of the links in the description. So thank you again for being here. And to everyone who tuned in, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You know the drill. But if you really loved it and want to support the podcast, you can buy me a coffee via the link in the description. It was great having you back, and until next time, try to be just a little bit better.
Thanks for being part of these journeys. Keep leading, keep building. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your insights.